I love the ad on that. We're going to have to pretty this pig up.
For most of us, it's as simple as following a series of familiar steps to get us to that answer. Now, remember this.
That would be a Common Core for Mimo's version of computer programming, or just Droid's murder button. You'd have to have a Common Core, ones and zeros and bits and bytes that make a button, or the buttons added together, zeros to one and bits and bytes that make ZBrush here, or Ace Combat 7 HUD. To do a base, I'd say, can you program an Ace Combat 7 HUD, or work the War Room to reverse engineer it from different conceptual models using the scientific process of a Hutter's Prize of levels intelligent?
In the U.S. and that we could have kids.
It breaks stuff. It's like gravity A through F is Marxist, fascist. You got to stay within those uniform policies of this core. But the differential is not the Common Core broke the ground. It's that Class D schools against the differential Class A schools had anything to do with the students' output. Oh, I got to get them from West Point, or I got to get them from Harvard or Yale. No. If the Common Core was good, it wouldn't matter where you got them from based on the system. And that'll break that system, not the school.
But it wasn't the truth. I was 15 in 1977, and I'll be 30 next week. I don't think that math checks out. I don't get math. I went to school in the 2000s, and we were taught Common Core.
All of a sudden, parents
there is
were
but
having to
one,
help their kids
0
with
and 1.
math
I am
homework
electron
that they
on a
couldn't
decay
quite
state.
grasp
Well, you
because
can't get
they
away
had
from
to
it,
talk
cesium.
Math that way.
So, how can the U.S. fix our
hydrogen's,
hydrogen.
Schrodinger's equation on hydrogen. Yeah, let's go check it out, Dr. A Physics. In my Common Core, I make my people that want to understand how I get there study that course, not just Schrodinger's wave function for hydrogen on the black body radiation. You're going to get a whole bunch of Hubble 45 and polarized cells and totality time for Carl Sagan's universe loaf and fog nuking Mars. I got to know how much uranium's in the ground, the rate in which we get uranium to nuke Mars, to melt the ice cap, to get oxygen and carbon dioxide, or heat the on averages of those compositions, and the levels of terminal velocity, 9.8 meters per second, would provide an action at a spooky distance in terms of dimensional analysis while choosing bits and bytes, not necessarily running a straight line. Unless you define Common Core mathematically in every class, what happened here in history of patent? Well, that patent is a field report, which is basically an after-action report, which is also an invention. You do the same thing as an invention as Normandy and anything else. Patent's bullpip AR-15-0-1 in terms of the Second Amendment, which is the First Amendment based on the black body radiation, making A squared plus B squared God in the form of every once in a while a player running the Koran, throwing a mulberry bush in the ocean to determine Bernoulli's equation to figuring out congruency for these standards. I wasn't taught that. I had to learn that. Now, I need common systems that say, oh, you're a teacher, that's what this theory is. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Common Core's missionary position of this is the fourth day in trigonometry class, regardless of whether you're in California or New York or Ohio, about what students do. I can't augment this test to get a differential. Oh, my kids are not smart enough. That's the fucking senator's job! They're supposed to pay attention to that and make augmentations back on a time trajectory of projecting the ideas of the trebuchet here. What's the thing we're using is the vehicle in the Uber Supreme Court case. You can't just pull out these things and say all of a sudden CDC inside here a critical theory or anything else by those values have it. You get every asshole and their brother breaking down. It's like, well, that's the thing that pulls the strings of the fate of the universe that does it, and then right on the other end of it, clearly that's what they're doing, but they'll say it's not. Graph it.
As well as we'd like to be doing in achieving our standards, but they're very high. This makes for a confusing conversation.
Well, you foul them for being high.
nonprofit
It's a
groups,
dual
the
diagnosis.
Council of Chief
Yeah,
State
people
School
can be
Officers,
stoned working
and
in the
the National
stone mill.
Governors
Old schoolers
Association
want to get out
developed
and,
the standards.
you know, have a
Achieve,
day, but
nonprofit
only
educational
alcohol is
reform
acceptable
group,
on
as
that.
well
But you
as
wake up
various
hungover
teachers'
in the
unions,
morning on the
including the
differential.
National
It's studying an
Education
after-action
Association and the
report, which
American
is a
Federation of
field
Teachers
theory
joined
report,
in
which
to
is
help the
a
process.
incident report, which is a cut coefficient, what is a Penrose twistor theory, or multivariable calculus in terms of planes and curves and parametrics values inside of here. They're XYZs, they are words. What is the thing we are doing? If I don't know what the problem is, that's what these things are. This school says this school says this school says this, and I found all of them different. Well, I'm going to make it this, and I'm going to form gravity off of that common core, like from cloud to ground through the center of the earth, because you need the earth to give oxygen and the composition of most common general systems to determine that atmospheric event, the forecasting of those things to say, well, it should mini-max its way down here by hedging code on what it is, or hedging mini-max for what the value is inside here of electrical engineering or computer programming. Well, you would say it's electrical engineering. Yeah, let's take a look at Ben Eater for a moment here in the breadboard about the MOS 425 chip, or 4205 chip. Raspberry Pi, M1 and M2, which one am I going to choose by the raspberry of time dilation on the top of the mountain and bottom Marietta Trench, resources and systems to compensate that system by vector positions. It's Cerebro essentially here, based on the program of something like XL, but Word can define what XL does and is. This can be then re-engineered to explain a story or a line of code in ones and zeros in the forms of letters, English, Chinese, Russian, or anything else inside here congruent to M1 and M2, and the necessary topology by that differential, cesium to determine hydrogen in some form given a neutrino or fission in this system. Or fusion, excuse me. Both. Well, M1 and M2, they're both a nuclear reaction that has an energy to state that, say, sometimes energy release in this form, alpha and beta, which can then be harnessed and formed through the electromagnetisms of the orientation of the field of the length of CERN to determine what I can pump through it commonly in the system. And students would be those elements. They are congruent, E0 to E1 or M1. Electrons, hydrogen, particles, nuclei, whatever, that is students. And people can't tell you the difference between quantum mechanics and general relativity. That general relativity is a pain train, right? Here's the train. Let's change out a few values. The speed of the train, the weight of the train, therefore the momentum and where you go, not just some observable system inside of here, but also IH, the irrational shortest distance here, 6.63 10 to the negative 20 or 34 J's, capital form J. That's mathematically by joules or joint causal principles or whatever P could represent for momentum or pressure or Paul. You know, if I wanted to correlate a key indicating crypto for what that is, it's a Monte Poly cipher base inside of what this is. And I'd learn that in school. I don't have a school to test that. They're not just going to arbitrarily come to that conclusion themselves. They're going to be in working systems, working for dollars, trying to figure out thermodynamics by the economics of it, being Doomslayer for the most part, or some damn Daisy Rabbit pattern inside here, banging around the rabbit order and little salt grenades dropped all over the farm about whether there's an actual number there or not. We don't got no rabbits. Well, there's a pile of rabbit turds. It's pretty obvious. One of them comes around here, maybe not right at the moment while we're standing here, but that's the point of the IH irrational number.
From up above and say, well, here it is.
And 42 going high, or I,
Kids
you
are
know,
not
whatever.
cogs in a machine. So we say something is going to happen in third grade, but realistically, for some
It's
kids,
like
it happens
every
in
third
second
grade. It's
and
like,
for
no.
some kids, it's not gonna happen till fifth grade.
Third
The
graders
Common
across
Core
the
made
board are
that
an
really
age of an
hard.
indicator
It
that
really
all
threw a
students
huge
need to differentiate
spotlight
for.
that all kids
Maybe
aren't
in a
gonna
day
learn
of a
things in the
time when
same
the world
path,
was different,
and
but now
really
they all
started
have
to
fucking
mark that
computers,
as
and that's
success
universal.
versus failure.
Another theory is that those who wrote the standards didn't take into account the financial
Absolutely
difficulties
not.
of students across
Inside
America.
here, the
Studies
third
have shown
grader or
time after
fourth
time
grader or
that
12th
children
grader
grow
or
up
actually
more likely to have
master
poor academic
degree
achievement and drop
by
out of
the
high school.
standard says,
Roughly
well,
10.5 million
Bernoulli's
children
out
live in
there is
poverty
the
in
way
US.
the derivative lambda and Pensrow, which just caught the
And
Nobel
I think that
Peace
we feel like
Prize
that could have even
would tell you this is a vacuum. Vacuum. Field theory vacuum. When you get out there with people talking about the photosphere being the same thing as an IH event horizon in terms of the Epstein sphere that's created in terms of the surface of that black hole on this snowflake topology problem that has a lot to do with the land nav and time dilation and trying to get from point A to point B. You're going to need to be a delta on this ground, and we have deltas that do it. It's a defined model that says big dogs on this. Honey, you too in this. You could be one of those Malamus or whatever the hell it is out there, of a female breed, given the system of the Spectricon, the Jacobian matrix here for the arbitrage we're using for computer programming, the autonomous nature of the limits of that distance and what it can do. It's not just going to do arbitrarily whatever the hell you want. Now you can explain that to this program right here, or a student say, hey, you got an F inside here. That is neural net for the autonomous nature of schools to say the adjustment process on this isn't to just blow through that. You need the Euler's values, the Engling angles on this thing to say I need to use the proper geodesics to properly engineer this and FMA that with the forces necessary, both inverted negative sharps. Sometimes it's more beneficial to do that, and every once in a while, up, down, up, and down. You got to use that as a sharps officer, getting pretty salty about the engineering, the energy transmission, and the differential inside of here. Right? Because that would be sharp. Say I did something by tone and frequency that harassed somebody inside here. When you look out that window right there today and say, if I didn't pay attention to it, you've been getting your dick kicked in this whole damn time. We all have. AR-15-0-1 is outside your window right now. You know what that is? Boot camp. Has shit to do with an army being in there, but more like a stone mill, and me using that stone mill to train soldiers certain degrees of certain patches that I bring in that Bluestone militia. We're going to learn certain things about long-term cemeteries, about people working stations, and things that commonly happen in that environment given the turnover rate by those values in general. They don't work all the time, but they give me a standard pattern to be able to see registers of actions of spooky distances and superpositions against those grid states. Those dimensional analyses that could correlate the spectrum. And somebody's going to give me something about a crane differential to the weight differential and the outriggers that go on this thing that we have invented based on that system to adjust and renormalize these standards. So what do we know? What do we get out of that? We need something that says the 8th grader's test, the 1st grader's test, the kindergartner's test is the same across every state in every country. Not some damn regent's degree in California and New York comparatively to every other state that doesn't use it, and I haven't once been asked on a resume whether my regent's degree comes up in a matter at all if I still got a high school diploma. So it's an extra barrier on systems wasting money on shit that never needed to be done for testing that takes up time and takes off the trajectory of what this does and causes a negative problem instead of a positive problem. And it's pretty easy to graph that when you actually get out there and prime it. Write it down, graph it, figure it out. Here we sit inside here, and there's all kinds of time-dilated systems, but they will correlate to an M1, M2, MM variable. That's math. Somebody want to disagree with me with that right now? We'll burn down the colleges, right? We don't need them anymore then. You gonna go to war with that? Like maybe that might be a cost on the ratio of the tax that gets you dead? Figure it out, the geodesics on that. What are you going to go? Go toe-to-toe with every college right now, every teacher? How about we start burning down hospitals while we're at it? Because fuck it. You know, the graphing indexes of certain systems inside of here. Smoke them if you got them. But then somebody pulls out cigarettes. The whole entire industry, for what it does, turns down. I'm saying start with the Common Core first and the damn worker function. I have a town. Those towns have jobs. Jobs are a limited system, 0 and 1. Go find them, put them in a fucking map, figure out where they are, map it down. And also when you have that done, why don't you graph the fucking jobs for what it is, so when you arrest somebody inside here and put them in that fucking college, they would actually have the book mechanics instead of just sitting there watching CNN or whatever the fuck's on Sci-Fi Channel because they don't have control of the fucking clicker.